Now here's the thing, guys. This water's still warm up here. About 20 feet down, it's a lot cooler. That's where the stripers like to be, there and deeper, in fact. So I know this looks kind of mean, but the way to get them back down so that they can get back down to the oxygen-rich water is torpedo them. Here we go.
Hi, welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Tina Howard, and today I have a very special guest, Captain Cephas McCrae. So happy to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me, Tina. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm excited to talk about fishing.
Me too. I confess, I don't fish, so I didn't know who you were.
We will change that.
And Wes told me, hey, here's a good idea. And I said, okay, well, let me just give him a call and see. So I did a little investigation on the website.
Oh, my goodness.
You've got this great relatability on your website and on your TV show.
Well, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. So how'd you get here? How'd you get to Hartwell?
Okay, so, any good story starts at the beginning.
Okay.
I got to Hartwell after being raised in North Carolina.
Okay.
Went to school there, lived in the country.
Okay.
And actually was raised on a lake in the country that's not very dissimilar to what we've got here at Hartwell. It's a hydroelectric lake.
Okay.
Great fishing, and as a growing up kid, way back when, I'm not going to say how far back, but way back when, living in the woods, you get into a lot of mischief and stuff like that. So it was a wonderful childhood. Went to college in North Carolina, got out of there and said, I don't want to be in the country in Carolina anymore, which was probably a mistake at the time, but I moved to Atlanta. And that's now country mouse come to the city, and that was a rude awakening.
Oh my! But as a young person, what are you, 20, 21 when you graduate from college?
Yeah, I'm 22 now.
Yeah, now you're 22. When you come out of college, you are looking for the big city, the bright lights, the activity, the other young people.
Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely true, because you want to kind of spread your wings a little bit and see what all is out there. And Atlanta, in those days, is not nearly as big as it is now, but that really was a wonderful experience. You get to be on your own. You're out from mom's wings and out of the house. So met a wonderful girl who lived across from me in the apartment complex we were in, and it became quite evident that we were soulmates. And it's wonderful if you can find that kind of a person first time out,
Wow, that was lucky.
You know what? I am lucky in so many ways, and Miss Beth has been my good luck charm all these years.
Oh, so did you just happen to see her maybe taking groceries in one day and say, wow,
okay, so
that chick?
All right, so once again, some of those wonderful mythical kind of romance stories are just that. They're mythical romance stories. Ours was, we met at the pool.
Oh, that's nice.
And we met at the pool at a pool party.
Okay.
And in those days, every apartment complex had a party, usually on the weekends.
Sure.
So we just kind of became buddies. And I think, if you can start off being really good friends and then become closer, that's because then you realize what each other's idiosyncrasies are and stuff like that.
Yeah, get to know each other a little bit before you date.
Exactly.
Well, that's really nice that you met. Did she also, was it love at first sight for her?
You know what, I don't know. There may have been some infatuation before there was, love at first sight kind of thing. For me, I'll say it was probably, it didn't take long.
That's great. And what was your job at that point? What were you doing in Atlanta?
Here in Atlanta, I had a bunch of different jobs.
Okay.
Again, you're just coming to, I didn't come here with a job. So one of my first jobs in Atlanta was working at the old Sears and Roebuck building, hauling their boxes and loading trucks. Then I got a job because part of my education got me my radio telephone license, your DJ license, basically.
You have a great voice for that, by the way. I was going to ask you that later.
My college guidance counselor said, son, You have such an Eastern North Carolina accent. I just don't see you being on the radio.
What?
And so that puts the challenge. It's like a slap in the face.
So you.
I moved down here and I got a job at an AM radio station in Cartersville, Georgia,
Okay.
and had the weekend shift. And by that I mean the whole weekend. Like slept overnight there, kind of weekend shift
Oh, my
on the air
goodness.
from 7 o'clock in the morning till the sun went down.
Wow.
And it was a lot of fun. And then I sort of found my way in through, I love music and I love recordings, and worked my way through a number of the recording studios in town. And then finally wound up, and that's kind of where my career path went, I finally wound up working for CBS News. Because those were the days, which a lot of people won't recall anymore, but when they actually shot on film,
Yes.
moving picture film. They call it filming today, but it's really video.
Right.
And those were the days whenever it went from film at 11 to tape at 11, on the news.
Yeah.
And there were some really smart people there who taught me the art, and I taught them the science.
Okay.
So that was many years of working for CBS News, CBS Sports, and then
And for CBS News, you worked in the film and tape department?
I was out on the
were
road,
on the road,
working with
reporting.
No, I wasn't in
wasn't-
front of the camera. I was behind the
You
camera.
were behind the camera. Okay.
And so I
But with
edited
your
and shot.
voice, you should have been in front of the camera.
These guys that we worked with, they were true professionals. They had the golden pipes. They sounded like they were from Kansas. No accent,
No accent
whatsoever.
But that was still an experience, being behind the
Oh my
camera.
gosh, it was. I mean, I'm 23 years old, traveling the country, and getting to meet people. The president of the United States is like right there.
Wow.
And then of course there were some kind of sketchy stories too, because you're doing news.
Yeah.
But I got to travel all over the place. And had the benefit of having some very, very knowledgeable folks school me, so that ultimately, for the past however many decades now, we started a PR firm in Atlanta,
Okay.
and that's what led from there to doing outdoor programming,
Okay.
and then ultimately to what became the Nuts and Bolts of Fishing.
That's great. So the Nuts and Bolts of Fishing is the name of your television
Right.
show, and nutsandboltsfishing.com is your website.
Correct.
Because I looked at both. And so how long have you been doing the show?
Since dirt.
Since the beginning of time.
Since the beginning of time, yeah.
Awesome.
There's pieces of coal in some of our stuff.
That was kind of gutsy, though, to go from behind the camera to doing more outdoor. Where's the leap? What were you thinking?
There's another story there. As the PR firm had been doing a number of outdoor shows for the major networks, for Fox, for ESPN, for the Nashville Network Outdoor Channel,
Would we know any of those?
Celebrity Outdoors, North American Whitetail, Fix It Up on Home Garden Channel.
Okay.
I'm sorry, some of them escape me
That's
now.
great, yeah.
But they pretty much, if it was outdoors, in the sunshine, we had a finger in it, either as camera crews or as a production company or whatever. And some sort of serendipitously, number of decades ago now, Fox Sports called and said, "Hey, would you guys like to do another series that focused on fishing in the southeastern United States, freshwater and saltwater?" And we thought about it for a few minutes, said, okay, we can probably do that. Now we've got to come up with a concept, we've got to come up with a name of the show, and we've got to come up with a host. So our first task was we gathered around the conference room table and we played the kids game, rock, paper, scissors, and I lost. And that meant that I had to be the guy in front of the camera. Which was something I was not exactly accustomed to at the time. And then from a conceptual perspective, we said, okay, we looked at how things were trending, what shows were doing in that
But you're
time.
great conversationally, though. I would think that would be, you were a natural for that. Maybe your colleagues thought so too.
Maybe. Well, fishing's been in my passionate. It's been in my blood since I could walk. So when you're going to do a fishing show, then let's go. We look around the room and go, okay,
You're
everybody
not
can
going to get
fish.
somebody like me to host a fish. You're not going to get somebody that doesn't fish or has never fished. You're going to get the expert, the person that's done it for a long time.
Well, I mean, I had some
would be you.
depth, but I still wouldn't call myself an expert.
You're modest.
Yeah, well.
So then you lost. You drew the short straw.
I drew the short straw. I got to be the host, and we looked from a conceptual perspective of what's trending now. And there were two kind of categories, Tina. There was the category that was pure entertainment. You watch the show for 30 minutes, you see a guy catch a bunch of fish, it fades to black, and you scratch your head and you go, well, I didn't learn anything. It was entertaining, but it really didn't take anything away.
Yeah.
The other end of the spectrum was the beginnings of reality TV. So it was all about the conflict and the arguments and the personalities kind of couched around fishing, but once again, you didn't have much of a takeaway. We said, let's hit the middle of the spectrum there, and we wanted folks to do, or I want folks to do three things when they watch the show. You certainly want them to be entertained to some degree. You want them to chuckle a little bit. I want them to learn something, a tackle tip, how to fish, the species that we're targeting. Maybe it's something about the destination we're at, or a recipe on how to cook your catch of the day.
Sure.
And then I want them to have an epiphany. I want them to have an aha moment where they go, gee whiz, I didn't know that. Thank you. And that's, for me, if we can do those three things, then it's a touchdown.
Yeah.
And so the final thing was, how do we come up with the name of the show? And after we discussed, okay, who's going to be the host? What's your concept going to be? Okay, we got that down. One of the folks at the table said, what we're really talking about here is giving people the nuts and bolts of what they need about fishing.
Ding.
Ding, yeah, light bulbs turn on, and we go, okay, well, that's the name of the show. And our objective, our mantra is, we try to give people practical, real-world information that they can use the next time they're on the water to put a few more fish in the boat, or to be a more safer boater, or even tips on how to do maintenance things on their boat, their motor, their trailer.
That's excellent.
There you go.
That's nuts and bolts. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And you started filming after you got all of those ducks in a row.
A long time ago.
And you put it where first?
So the show first started airing on Fox Sports back in the mid 2000s. And then we went from Fox Sports, which we're still on Fox Sports now. We added Shentel TV, which gives us the the New England area, the Middle East area of the Atlantic. We added Fox Sports Arizona, and that gave us the West Coast. And we just this year, which I'm really happy to say, we added Heart TV. So we're now on HeartCom, and
excellent.
We added a on-demand channel. It's called Carbon TV. So
Carbon.
Carbon TV, and it's on Amazon, Hulu, Roku. It's all, which is it's sort of sad because the way things are going from a broadcast perspective, that the trend these days is to go to more on-demand type viewing.
Of course.
And so we said, well, we need to work ourselves into that niche as well.
That's the future,
Yeah.
or the present.
Well,
for
it's
anybody
actually
under
closer
40.
to the present than we think. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's true.
The future's not that
It's
far
true.
away.
I don't, the part of the anticipation when I was growing up, and even as an adult, was Thursday night was your night to watch this
Sure.
or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And you might even arrange your social life around because
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now my kids have never waited to watch anything.
Well, that's the me generation, the instant gratification generation.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've raised them.
Yes, I know. And I got to admit, I kind of like on-demand streaming stuff too. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So you had to be pretty smart to kind of keep up with all that, because the television, cable, streaming industry is changing so much and
It's
so
changing
fast.
daily.
And there's so much content out there. But by being a PR firm before you were a fishing host, does that help you stay kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to staying in front of people?
Well, it's hard to be ahead of the curve, but at least you can stay on the crest of the wave. And you really, there's with all of the avenues, the platforms that are available now on the web and on demand for streaming, you can look at virtually anything you want anytime you want.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it doesn't. My kids, they're all with the on-demand streaming type programming, and they don't. It doesn't bother them that the show that they're watching this week actually aired last week, because for them it's the first time they've seen it.
Right.
So they just they're just a week behind, perhaps.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can get on the web and look for how to refill an ink pen, and there's a program on that.
Yes.
There's a program on which side of the plate to put the fork on. So how to learn how to weld. It's amazing the amount of information that's out there.
It is. It is. And one wouldn't necessarily think that you needed nuts and bolts of fishing, because in a lot of people's heads, back in the day, Grandpa went out to the creek with a cane pole and threw it in.
That's how
if
I learned.
anything bit, then you had a fish.
Yeah, that's exactly
But
the way you learn.
Today, there's so many more things, and if you want to do it, I think a lot of people now are more environmentally conscious, maybe.
Yeah,
that
sure.
they want to be somewhat conservative with the fish. They don't want to be so wasteful. And I know on your website you talked a lot about taking only what you're going to eat and then leaving the rest. I don't know that you really, I think maybe back in the day people fished until they got enough for supper and then they maybe left. But today it's more of a sport, I think.
And you're exactly right, Tina. The fishing today is not necessarily what it was years ago. In the past, people would fish, and I was one of those. I fished with my dad and my grandpa, and it was, let's fill the box, because we're going to take this home and feed the family on it for the next month.
That's right.
It was kind of akin to,
going to Costco.
Well, it was, exactly. Yeah, you want to fill the trunk of the car with whatever you need for the next month and a half. And then I think that like-minded people started to realize that we need to responsibly manage our natural resources. And that doesn't mean that you can't take a few fish home for the dinner plate. It does mean, in my mind, that we need to be mindful of the fact that some of these resources are limited. And we need to manage our resources so that our kids and our grandkids will have something that they can do coming up. And hopefully a lot of our kids and grandkids are going to begin to explore and appreciate and utilize what Mother Nature provides, as opposed to what technology provides.
Exactly.
And
that's a challenge. Who would have thought we'd be dealing with that?
I've had kids on the boat for charters, and mom and dad, or dad and a buddy bring their two kids on the boat, and I love that. I love kids. Love to see kids fish, but they walk on with their some sort of a device. And while we're riding out, they're playing their machine, and then my goal is to get a rod bending in a hurry and put those kids on it. And as soon as you can put a rod in their hand that's got a fish on it, the iPads just seemingly get lost, and now they're focused, and you got this big smile on their face that you can't wipe off with sandpaper, and now they're engaged, and they tell their buddies, and they got the pictures, and they're all the social media stuff. So once you can get a kid hooked on fishing, then you got them for life.
Yeah.
And it's just that challenge of getting them. So from a natural resources perspective, to get back on track, I'm not necessarily, in the truest sense of the term, a conservationist. In other words, maybe that's the wrong choice of words, but I'm not for let's just stop fishing. Let's stop hunting. Let's just let everything go back to the way it was in prehistoric times. I think that there's a place out there for all of our outdoor sports, and that if we manage them correctly, then we'll have plenty left for everybody to enjoy for generations to come.
Yeah, agreed. Who do you think of when you think of those early days fishing? Is it Dad, Grandpa, or
Probably Grandpa.
Yeah?
There's plenty of stories with Dad and with the brothers and cousins and stuff like that. But I think everybody has a special relationship with their grandparents if they're fortunate enough to grow up with them.
Yes.
And my granddad was a hunter, was a clockmaker. He was a gunsmith.
Clockmaker?
Yeah, it was crazy. And he was a cabinet maker. He was just an unbelievable craftsman.
He's great with his hands.
Absolutely. And
So he was a fascinating character. I bet.
He had stories. He could manage all of us wild youngins, and he did it in a way that kept us engaged. So we would go fishing at the pond, and he'd put out rods, and it was the cane pole kind of a thing, crickets and worms, and our job was to go catch crickets and to go dig up worms and stuff. So we had something to do. And it made us feel like we were part of what was going on. And then he'd sit there and tell stories. My grandpa was Jed Clampett. Not with a big wad of money, but that kind of character, and that kind of wit and that high degree of common sense. And he could see things that other people might not see. Like in clouds and stuff, So it was something that kept a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old actively engaged, and you were just in awe of all the stuff Grandpa knew and would tell you about. So he's probably my greatest fishing influence.
Did you have cousins or siblings that?
Oh my gosh, we had 7. Our family reunion looked like a Super Bowl game.
That's great.
Where I was from, everybody was related. Our family tree is pretty straight.
That's great. So you had a lot of kids with you too, with Grandpa.
Yeah, always.
That had to be part of the fun too.
Yeah, and that was part of the fun of growing up in the country. In the summertime, you just there was no safety director when we were coming up. You're on your own, and Mom would just go, okay, here's breakfast. Good. Has everybody got shoes on? All right, good. Fine. See ya. And we'd take off in the woods and think nothing about not coming back until dinner time.
Right.
So
the sun going down was your signal.
You better be home before dark.
That's right.
Be home before dark.
I think a lot of parents in the 60s and 70s, favorite words were run along. Run along. It didn't mean anything offensive. It was go on and get busy and find something to do.
Get out of our hair.
Yes, I know. And as parents now, we're kind of the opposite, afraid to kind of turn them loose.
Sure.
But that must have been fun, being out in the country with all your cousins.
It was a hoot. You have similar kind of growing up stuff too.
I grew up in the city.
City girl, but you had to do something that was fun.
No, it was dangerous. We couldn't even trick or treat or anything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was different. Very different.
Did you have to go through a lot of counseling or stuff?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. The cure was we moved here when I was in high school. Then it was all good.
Yeah, sure. Well, see, you came to the country then.
Yeah. Well, we did on the weekends. We came up here on the weekends. We did not know there were Saturday morning cartoons.
Because you were out.
We were. Sure. We didn't have a television up here. We didn't have a telephone. We didn't have anything. And what we had up here was totally unstructured time. So there was, there are still things that make me think of those days, like the smell of the sun on pine needles creates kind of a smell, a clean smell in the woods, and that takes me back to being up here on the weekends when we had nothing. And it wasn't until we were teenagers that we realized we were missing out on cartoons. Of course, by then you're too old to watch them. But things like
no, you're never too old for cartoons.
Like Miss Universe. My kids at school would talk about, did you see Miss Universe and Miss Trinidad? No, I did not see that because we were up here and there was no television.
Sure.
So we didn't even know what we didn't know back in the day. It was great though. And we'd bring up neighborhood.
Sometimes,
My folks had a giant LTD station wagon.
Ooh.
With a backwards facing back seat.
Oh, yeah.
That had no seat belts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And we would pack that station wagon with all the neighborhood kids and bring them up for the weekend and just run wild.
Yeah, that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah. Just being outside is just so great.
Some days, and when you're guiding, when you've got folks on the boat that my job is to put them on fish, is to put some fish in the boat. There are days when we go fishing and we don't go catching. Everybody wants to go catching. Some days it can be hard.
Goal-oriented now.
Yeah, some days it can be hard. Some days fish are finicky, and Mother Nature always has the ace in that particular deck of cards.
That's true.
But I get a lot of folks that will go fishing with us, and somebody will say, "I'm going to read my book." I sit up front. Okay, great. And the rest of us will fish. That person has a great time.
Yeah.
And then they see all the rods bending in the back, and they go, "You know what? I think I might want to. I might want to try that." And then they get the excitement, the adrenaline, the all this stuff of pulling a fish up, and the fish that they're pulling up, they're holding like this, as opposed to, like that.
Oh.
They're holding the fish, a big striper, they're holding like this, so you get the big smile again, and you put the fish back, and they feel good about that. The fish swims off, everybody's happy, none the worse for the wear,
Right.
and then all of a sudden the book stays closed.
Yeah,
Because now they're, once
engaged.
again, and this could be somebody that doesn't have to be 9 years old, they could be 90 years
Right,
old
right.
and enjoy it. So
right.
we'll change, it may take a little while, we'll turn you into an angler.
What happened first, the show or the guide?
The guide.
So you started guiding.
Yeah.
When did you start doing that?
I guess that was when, right around kid number 2, right around
Okay.
Justin. And that was an opportunity for me not to do guiding full time, but to work, to guide on the weekends, to help other guides who were full-time guides on Lake Lanier, for instance, or at the coast. We do it both Atlantic coast, Gulf Coast, and then the regional lakes around here.
Okay.
And it was an opportunity where if they had a big group and they needed another boat, or they needed another person, then they'd give me a call. And it was a great way to just meet new people, because I was going to be fishing anyhow.
Yeah.
So now I've got somebody fishing along with me. Yeah.
And you get to teach a little bit of what you know, which is great.
I get to be chatty, and and of course you get to do well. I'm the guide today. I'm
Yeah.
the cat. This right here only works if you've got a lot of fish in the box.
Yeah.
You come back empty-handed, and you're kind of okay. I think I'll park over here someplace. Yeah.
That's funny. So that came first in the guide, but now you're doing both, the television show and the guide. And you guide on all the lakes in the Southeast as well as the ocean and the Gulf, right?
Well, let's not say all the lakes, but the lakes around here. So we're talking Oconee,
Okay.
Murray,
Okay.
Hartwell, Lanier, Clarks Hill. That's 5. Those are all within a couple of hour drive. And similarly, the cool thing about that is that folks that might come from Greenville, South Carolina, or come from Athens, that if they fish Lake Oconee, for instance, but they come up here to Hartwell to fish with me, the things that we do here on Hartwell, the tactics that we use, the way that we fish, that person can take that information and go back to Lake Oconee and use it and catch fish there. Because our fisheries around here are very similar, both in the way that they're stocked and the seasonal patterns of where the fish would most likely be.
Okay.
So you don't have to go, well, I'm fishing Oconee, I need to go to Oconee to learn how to fish that. Well, yeah, you do to some extent to know where to go, but how to do it, you can learn that here and then take that and go catch fish on Lake Lanier, for instance.
Okay. So you can transfer that knowledge. Is there a particular type of fish that you try to fish, like striper, for example, or?
I prefer, and it goes back to I'd rather take a picture of a fish like this than a fish like that. So I prefer striper and hybrid fishing.
Because they're larger?
Because, well, that's one of them. But the way that you fish for them is very similar to what I really am passionate about, which is saltwater fishing. There's similar tactics and techniques that you use to catch stripers that you would to go catch king mackerel in the ocean. And so we do a lot of trolling, and then we do some downlining, which the same kind of where you put a bait on a hook and just drop it straight over and wait for the bite is similar to how you fish for grouper and snapper in the ocean. So I guess I don't have the finesse or the patience to throw bass lures all day long. And there's nothing wrong with that. Make no mistake. I mean, and quite honestly, a spotted bass doesn't know he shouldn't eat a bait you're using to catch stripers with.
Sure.
So we'll catch bass as well. But to stand on the front of the boat and throw crankbaits all day long, that's just not my preference. Again, if for anybody that does that, and you compete in tournaments and things, more power to you, because there's great money in that. There's a lot of glamour in that, and it's a lot of fun for them. Each to their own.
Sure.
Some people like to turkey hunt, some people like to deer hunt.
That's right.
So.
That's right. Do you remember the first time you went saltwater fishing? Because it sounds like you came up fishing in freshwater. Okay,
I was
tell me
7
about
years
that.
old. I went out, I cried, and I got on my back on the floor, and I stomped and I hollered, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and I almost got a spanking. And
Why? Why were you crying?
because I wanted to go fishing with the guys.
Oh.
And my dad and his buddies were going fishing. And when your dad and buddies go fishing, there's a lot of things that go on.
Yeah.
And my son, when I've taken him fishing at a young age, I'm going, what goes on at the beach stays at the beach, buddy. So I finally got the opportunity. He caved, took me fishing with him and 3 of my uncles, his brothers. And we went out of North Carolina, out of, I guess it was Nags Head or Hatteras, and we went to the Gulf Stream. We left at 10 o'clock at night.
So that's out there.
That's 70 miles.
Wow, that's out of sight of land.
We left at 9 o'clock at night, and these boats went slow. We left at 9 o'clock at night, and we wound up in the Gulf Stream at daylight, all night long. And
did you sleep?
Of course not. No, I slept on the way
exciting.
back.
Yeah.
It was 7 years old. You're just full of energy.
Yeah.
And we caught fish, and let me rephrase that. They caught fish, and they caught fish. Because, the fish they were catching were monsters. At least for a 7-year-old, a barracuda that's this big, still a big fish today.
Yeah.
But when you're 7 years old and you see this fish come over the side of the boat and his teeth are doing this, and they're get out of the way, and I want to get right up in it. And they're, dragging me back. I think my dad probably would have let me go, one time. It's like I was aggravating enough. So, yeah, that was my first experience. And I think, and I had been fishing before that with, as a youth, just around the ponds and the rivers.
Yeah.
But that was my first saltwater experience. And when I got that left such a positive impression on me. Yeah. That it's part of my DNA now.
That's great. My husband loves saltwater fishing, and he did it a lot growing up with his dad. And we were talking about how hands-off parents were back in the day. He and his mom and dad would go down to the Gulf for a couple months in the summer because they could do that. And he would be 9 years old out in a john boat in the Gulf by himself, be gone all day. Come home burnt to a crisp and fish at 9. You wouldn't even want your kid to get out of sight at 9. But anyway, different days. So, but yeah, he has that same passion for the saltwater fishing. So that's neat. So you guide on saltwater as well.
Yep. And we do a lot of what we do. Our guide service is called Wide Open Outfitters.
Okay.
And a lot of what we do are for groups. It could be a group of 4 or 5 buddies, or a group of 4 or 5 ladies, or it could be a large corporate event, or it could just be a couple of guys or girls, and or a dad wanting to take their kids saltwater fishing for the first time. So because I've been fortunate enough, and we traveled so much, to know a lot of guides, really good charter guides, all around the coast, up and down on all the lakes around here, then we've put together the ability to go, hey, Tina calls up and says, I want to go to Charleston, and we're going for the weekend, and we want to fish one afternoon. Okay, great. We'll get you a guide. If I can't go, or it's not practical or whatever, then we'll hook you up with a local guide that's a really good, charismatic.
So you vet all of your guides.
Absolutely.
So you've got.
We try our best to. So everybody's going to have a bad day and the thing I tell them is, I'm in the entertainment business as a guide. If you want dinner tonight, your best bet is to go to Kroger. If you want to be guaranteed dinner tonight, go to Kroger or whatever and get some fish. Yeah. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a fun time on the water.
Yeah, an experience.
We're going to have a great experience, and fish that we catch, look at that as a bonus.
Yes, that's a good way to look at it.
If you want to just fill the cooler, maybe we want to try calling somebody else. Because we're going to try to catch fish, of course. But if you don't have a cooler full of fish at the end of the day and you're a little disappointed, then either I didn't do my job, by that I mean keeping you entertained and having a good time, or maybe we weren't communicating to the fact that we're going to go fishing and catching as a bonus.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Does Beth also fish? Does she share your passion for fishing?
Beth enjoys fishing, and I will say that she's probably not as avid as I am. She has her own passions, things that she absolutely loves to do. Fishing's not at the top of that list, but she does enjoy it. I think given the opportunity to sit on the beach with a book and, listen to the surf and stuff
Yeah.
like that, or go fishing 5 days in a row, she's probably going to pick beach 4 of those days
Sure.
and fishing 1 of them.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah.
I relate to that.
Yeah.
I do. Honeymooning. Did y'all go out on the water for honeymoon
no.
or family trips?
No, our honeymoon, we went to Disney World.
Did ya?
We did the, hey, you just got married, where are you going? Well, by golly, we're going to, we did. We went to
How
Disney
fun.
World for a honeymoon. And there's something about Disney World that, at least for me and for her, when you walk into the Magic Kingdom, I don't care how old you are, I'm 9 years old again.
Oh,
It's just, it's magical. It's wonderful. I could never get enough of it. So we decided we're going to do that for a honeymoon.
how fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get to do what most people do on their honeymoon all the time, going to the beach and the salt water.
Yeah,
and
they
the
have to
fishing
some
and things
degree.
like
Yeah, I
that.
mean, and Bethy, every day with you is a honeymoon.
You had to get that in. That's good. Smart.
That's see, I
You're
know where my
thinking.
bread is buttered.
You are thinking. That's awesome. But now you guys live in Hartwell.
Yes. mhm.
So but you went to Atlanta and then moved here. when?
Atlanta, raised a family. Decided that.
And we found out we lived in Norcross.
Yeah, exactly. We
Unbelievable.
lived 3 miles from each
Yeah.
other, 2 miles from each other. So we raised a family in Norcross, and then a couple years ago, became empty nesters. Kids are off the payroll. It's wonderful. They're doing their own thing. And we said, geez, I mean, there are a lot of amenities in Norcross and that area that we had become accustomed to. So it was a little bit of a change, but I mean, we've been coming up here for a long time. But moving to Hartwell and making our life here, I've got my Hart County driver's license now. Moving here has probably been one of the best things we've ever done. It's so wonderful. The people here, I've never been called sugar and sweetheart so much in my life. It's like going back home. I mean, it really is. It is so. The people here are so nice, and I'm hoping that that I'm looking forward to enjoying this kind of wonderful atmosphere for a long time here.
I agree with you on that. Do you get recognized?
Yeah,
From your show?
yeah. This, and it's fun. Sometimes when we're on the road at a gas station, somebody will come over and say, "Hey," and here's what I get, because my co-host is a 128-pound golden retriever, Buck the Wonder Dog.
I was kind of disappointed you didn't bring him.
And I started to, and he hadn't had his hair done for a while. So, when people come by and say hi, a lot of the time, the first words out of their mouth is, "Where's Buck?" I'm going, what am I? Chopped liver? But they want to
the
know
co-star.
where's Buck. And
Buck
so
is the star.
I have become accustomed, and I'm okay with playing second fiddle to a dog.
I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Does the dog go fishing with you?
Yeah, yeah. I don't take him. He
likes the boat.
I don't take him offshore because he didn't have a place to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But here on the lake, if we've got a charter or if we're just out for the day, as soon as the boat gets hooked up, he's like right there.
Oh, he
Yeah,
likes it.
I'm in. Don't open that door, because if you do, I'm in the truck. So yeah, but he loves it. He's a special dog. He's a great dog, wonderful companion. People love him, and again, that's something when we're out on a charter and the fishing's kind of slow. If it's a summer day, I'll bring pool noodles out and let's go swim for a little while. Buck's in the water, playing around here. The kids are having a big time, and it cools everybody off for a little bit,
Yeah.
and then we get back in the boat and go find some more fish.
That is great.
Yeah.
How many of your tours are on Lake Hartwell? A fair number or just a few?
I'm hoping there will be more. I've just started. It's taken a long time to learn this lake, and I, by no stretch of the imagination, am an expert here.
It's a big lake.
It is a big pond. So I've just started in the last couple of months offering charter services here.
Okay.
And so, but in the last couple of months, I've had 5 or 6 charters. So,
Oh, wow, fantastic.
and as the spring progresses and the summer kicks in, then I'll probably start doing a few more. And not that I'm really anxious to do 7 days a week of chartering because that can wear on you after a while. But a couple, 3 or 4 a week, that's fun, and you get to meet so many cool people and hear their stories, and catch a few fish.
So good. What do you see in the future? You've still got a hand in your PR business. You're still running your PR business.
I'm tapering off a little bit.
Yeah.
But for the future, for me and Beth, I can't just sit on the porch. So retired or whatever, I can't just sit on the porch and whittle.
Yeah.
I got to do something.
Yeah.
And fishing is something that you can do a lot for a long time. It's it's a relatively, again, bad choice of words, it's a relatively benign sport in that you don't have to kill something to enjoy it.
True.
Okay. And so you can enjoy the sport, you can enjoy the day, you can enjoy the environment, and have a big time and never bend a rod, So for me, that kind of water, when we decided we were going to leave Norcross, it was, we're going to the ocean or we're going to the lake. And we decided lake because the ocean's 4 hours, 5 hours from here, either to the Gulf or to the Atlantic side. And so there's plenty of opportunities there. So for us, we're going to enjoy each other. We're going to enjoy our friends and our family. And then we're going to hopefully enjoy the pastimes and the hobbies and the career things that we've always enjoyed doing.
The fruits of your labor, so to speak.
Yeah, I'd like to think that's the case, sure.
What do you do when you're not fishing? What are your favorite things to do outside of fishing?
Okay. We both still enjoy our families, of course, seeing our kids.
And that's 2 sons, right?
We have a son and a daughter. We
Son and a daughter,
have the older daughter. Well, the daughter's the older, and then son, and they're both reasonably close. The daughter's in Tucker.
Okay.
Son's over close to Athens in Arnoldsville.
Okay.
So we're about an hour one way, hour and a half the other way.
And they're grown. They're fully grown up.
They're grown. They're their own people.
Okay.
And doing wonderfully.
It's nice to be close to the family.
Yeah, and family was a big part of my life growing up. I'm sure it was with yours.
Yes.
So, what do we enjoy doing now? I know it sounds kind of silly, but we enjoy just kind of sitting and watching the sunset, or listening to the loons that we have right now out on the cove. We also like the nightlife. We like to go to concerts. We like to see. We went to a couple of plays here in Hartwell this past winter season. As the days get a little bit longer, we'll start spending more time outside.
Are you a gardener? Do you do anything like that? Is Beth a gardener?
No,
I'm not. I should
not
be,
particularly.
but I'm not. I come from a long line of gardeners. I should be a gardener.
I cut the grass.
I don't even do that. I can't keep a house plant alive. I don't know why. It's just bypassed.
Well, and to some degree, that's the way Beth and I both are. It's we're not. You come to our house and it's not this lush garden atmosphere. There's a couple of trees that are trying to grow over here and a couple of bushes that are needing some water, and that's about it. So,
but to be fair, you really haven't been here all that long, so you might need a little time to settle in and figure out, because there are so many things to do here.
Oh, absolutely.
Just enormous number of things to do.
We've got, beyond all of the wonderful things of having a lake in your backyard, and all the amenities that come with that, I'm really happy to see how downtown Hartwell is growing.
Yes.
And it's becoming a vibrant downtown district. And it's still keeping its nice, cool, small, I know that sounds kind of weird, but that flavor that you just don't get in some big cities. And quite honestly, that a lot of big cities, in Peachtree Corners, for instance, is trying to
desperately trying to get back.
So, and we've got that here. I love being able to walk around town, in the evening. I loved Christmas time here. It just felt special and magical. There's plenty to do that doesn't really cost anything. And everybody you meet on the street says hi. Whether they know you or not. Hey, how you doing? So I'm so happy to be here.
That's great. I have to ask you a question about your name.
Sure.
Are you named for somebody? I mean, Cephas is not exactly a
It's
name
not
that
exactly
you hear
something you hear every day. Yeah. It was me great-great-granddad's name when they came over on the boat from Scotland.
How about that?
His name was Duncan Cephas McRae. And then that name sort of kind of fell into the recesses of the family genealogy for a while. And my dad's name, my dad was J.C. McRae. Everybody just called him Mr. J.C.
Okay.
And his James Cephas.
Okay.
And so they call him James Cephas. So I was named after my dad.
Okay.
And I
Are
was
you a junior?
No,
Okay.
I was the last one in a fairly large family.
Okay.
And all of my brothers and sisters got, I don't want to say common names, but more like my sister Jane, my brother Teddy. And since I was the last one in the line, I think they went, okay, we're done. So
Last chance.
that one looks like a Cephas. Okay. All right.
But now we can call you Captain.
Yeah, or you can call me whatever you'd like.
Now, Captain is an official designation.
Yeah.
What'd you have to do for that?
Well, there's a number of things. You're in quotes certified by the Coast Guard and there are varying degrees of licenses. You can get your basic captain's license, you get your master's ticket, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And then based on the size of vessels you're operating, that goes from there.
Okay.
Most of the lion's share of guides have what's called a 6-pack license. You can take 6 people on the boat with you on a small vessel up to 200 miles offshore.
Okay.
All right. Those
200 miles is a long way.
That's still, yeah, it's a good ways. And then I've got a master's ticket, which gives you a little more distance, a little larger boat,
Okay.
a few more people.
Okay.
But you go through a certain amount of, you have to take a test from the Coast Guard, and it's a pretty robust test on navigation, on safety, on boatmanship, seamanship skills, navigation, and they still do it with the old school navigation with a protractor or compass and that kind of chart.
They don't do
There's no
GPS,
punch in the numbers, because they want you to know how it gets. This like a kid in 3rd grade still learning math.
Multiplication tables and
Why can't I just put them? Because you need to know that.
You need to know it. Interesting.
So you do the
that
training.
would be a class all unto itself. That whole
It is.
navigation.
It's a long course over a period of months. And then what they also look for is experience. How much experience have you got, not with your license, but operating boats of certain sizes
measure that
and things.
in hours?
They look at it hours, and then you have to have sponsors. You have to have somebody validate that, another Coast Guard certified captain, to validate that that you're not just putting the numbers down arbitrarily. That there's somebody
that
they
can
trust
vouch for you.
that can vouch for you. And then you go through all the rigmarole, and eventually they send you a piece of paper.
Don't you have to know a little bit about the weather too?
I know whenever the hair on my arm starts to stand up, it's time to get out of there because lightning's on the way. But yeah,
you have to look at the weather report before you take a group out, right?
What's great nowadays is on my boat I've got SiriusXM Marine Weather. So the weather, NOAA, National Oceanic Atmosphere and so whatever it is, I get NOAA weather radar overlaid on top of my chart plotter.
Oh, nice.
I see lightning strikes, I see storm cells, I see how fast they're moving and things like that. So I can look at that anywhere in the Western Hemisphere and know it's time to leave. It's time to get off the water now. And I had several occasions, and here's something that people don't think about when it's sometimes, and it's not because they deliberately don't want to know that. It's just they haven't been taught that. From a boating safety perspective, here even on the lake in the summertime, you can be in a place on the lake in a cove, sitting, in a float on a noodle, and the tree line obscures your view of the skyline. And there is a massive storm brewing over there, and you don't sense it until you feel the wind change and the air get cooler. By the time that happens, it's too late.
Ooh.
So having this type of technology on your boat, on your chart plotter, and it's not expensive, and you can turn alerts on so it'll go beep whenever something's coming close. Now you can go, okay, that's a storm, but it's going to Clemson. We're good down here. Or that's a storm and it's heading our way and it's coming at 30 miles an hour. We need to pick up and go home now, head to the barn. And it saved my behind a number of times. When you're 25 miles offshore and you got a long way home and the seas kick up, it can be a white knuckle ride.
Have you had
But
any
you can
of
do
those?
that right out here
You
too.
can. I've done that. We have come back from NAMI a couple of times and had a sudden storm where you think, okay, they're all up to the east and we can go, but then suddenly they're all around.
And they build up.
And they
pop
build up, yeah.
And you can get 60-mile-an-hour winds out here on this lake, and
Yeah.
it looks like the Gulf of Mexico with 3-foot seas. And if you're in a ski boat that doesn't have a big bow on it, with not a lot of bow flare to knock the waves down, it can be dangerous.
Sure, yeah.
So, in that case, having that knowledge to be able to say, you know what, let's just sit here at NAMI
Yeah.
for a little while longer, have
Let
another
it
glass of
pass.
water and a little more sushi, and then we'll wait for this storm to pass
Yeah.
versus getting out there and getting caught in it.
Well, the thing I do remember about that, the kids were at soccer camp and we thought, woohoo, we're going to get to go on a date night. And then we come home in this. And there's that moment of, do we stay put? Do we try to get to shore and climb up to safety someplace? And I don't know the answer to this day. I don't know what we should have done. So.
Well, if you can avoid any kind of bad weather, if you can avoid the storm, that is, stay put for a little while and let it pass
Stay where
over.
you
Because
are,
usually the storms that we get in the summertime that are that bad only last about 20 or 30 minutes. The worst part of the storm, it's a squall line, it's a front coming through. And now it may come all the way down the lake from Toccoa and come all the way down the lake. But once it's gone through, usually, you may get a little rain behind it, but most of the bad stuff continues to move through. So if you can avoid it, by that I mean stay home or stay in the restaurant or something, and then come out later. If you get caught in it, number one, first and foremost, think safety. If you get caught in it, put your life jackets on.
Good thought.
Okay,
Put your life jacket
think
on.
safety.
Yeah.
Put your life jackets on. Make sure everybody on the boat has a life jacket on. And this is another thing that people sometimes don't understand. I'm going to diverge here for a second. From a safety perspective and from a legal perspective, you can get a ticket for this if you don't do it.
Okay.
Not everybody knows that everybody on the boat has to have a life jacket.
Yes.
Okay, so if you've got 6 people on the boat, there better be 6 life jackets and a throwable and your fire extinguisher
Yes.
and your flares and blah, 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 all your safety gear. Those life jackets need to be in good shape. They need to be in serviceable condition. They also need to be immediately and readily accessible. That means that those life jackets can't be under a bunch of skis and pool noodles and,
that's where they
wakeboards.
are. Yeah, I
here's the
know.
thing. A lot of people don't think about this, and there was a time when I didn't either. When you need a life jacket, you need it now.
Yeah.
You don't need to be doing this and
Yeah.
working through and trying to get hatches open and get wakeboards out and skis off. You need a life jacket now. It also cannot be in the plastic that it came in from the store. That means it's not readily accessible. If you got to tear it open to get to it. And the other thing that some people simply don't think about, and it's not because they're dumb or anything, it's just you don't think about it because you don't think about it, is not only do you have to have a life jacket for everybody on the boat, but it has to fit them.
That's right.
Okay, you're a petite lady.
Yeah, no.
If you've got life jackets on the boat that are 4XLs, I'm being silly here, that life jacket doesn't fit
No,
you.
I know what you mean. If you have a
Doesn't qualify.
10-year-old kid that's really skinny,
You've got to have a
you better have a
child's
smaller-
life, and it has to say child's. If they're under 12 years old, it has to say child's left vest on
Yeah.
it. So if you've got 2 kids and 4 adults, you got to have 6 vests, but at least 2 of them have to be kids. So it has to fit them.
Yeah.
And if you get stopped by our law enforcement folks, they're going to look for that. That's the first, and your fire extinguisher has to be in the green. There are little things.
check your. It's a good time to do all of this stuff.
Do it now.
As the season is starting, the
Do it
boating
now.
season is starting. So look for all of your life jackets. Make sure they're readily accessible,
Right.
out of the plastic.
Out of the plastic.
Fire extinguisher on board, and check the needle. Make
That's
sure it's in the
serviceable.
Yeah.
You
What
have-
else do we need?
The one thing.
Registration, obviously.
Oh, of course, you got to have your
needs to be there,
registration.
of course.
I'm okay. Well, let me rephrase that. If I had to pick something that I would be in violation of, in other words, if you said you have got to be in violation of something,
Pick one.
I'd pick my registration.
Yeah.
I want to make
That's
sure
not
my
gonna kill
safety
you.
gear is in good shape.
Yeah, you're right.
I want to be prepared for that emergency that might
Yes.
happen, or at least try to be as prepared as I can
Yes.
be. Another thing that folks should do, and do it now and do it regularly, is your fire extinguisher. is typically, most fire extinguishers on boats are dry chemical.
Okay.
Boats pound. When you're going through the water, they're bam, bam, they're doing this. That's just the way a boat rides. That fire extinguisher is sitting there for months on end doing this. Boom, boom, boom. And that dry chemical that's in the bottom that's in your fire extinguisher, not saying that they all do, but could potentially cake up in the bottom. So what would happen is if you had an instance where you needed to use your fire extinguisher, you pop the pin, you pull the trigger, and nothing comes out but propellant.
Ooh, that could be bad.
You're not putting your fire out. In fact, what you're doing is you're adding air, you're blowing on the flame. You're making it bigger. So the thing to do is occasionally now, before you put your boat back in the water, a couple of times in the summer, take your fire extinguisher out, make sure the needle's still in the green, turn it upside down, and just take the palm of your hand and beat it a couple of times and shake it up to get that extinguishing agent fluffy again, so that when you pull the trigger, extinguishing agent comes out.
That's a good idea.
We do a number of live seminars across the Southeast where we teach folks how to fish. We talk about how to use your electronics, how to understand weather, and we talk about safety, things like that. Folks can also take a U.S. Power Squadron course. I know Lake Lanier offers them.
U.S.
It's a couple
Power
of weekends.
Squadron course.
It's the
I've not heard that.
United States Power Squadron. Kind of like, I know that they don't look at themselves as similar in function, but kind of like the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And again, I'm not trying to put the two together, but the U.S. Power Squadron and a lot of Coast Guard auxiliary units will provide, either for a very small fee or free of charge, boating safety courses.
Okay.
And when you get your boat registration, that doesn't certify that you know how to run a boat.
True.
All that is a tax.
Right.
I mean, when it really boiled down to it, it's just a tax.
That's right.
I firmly believe that if you have a boat, just like having a car, because they can be dangerous.
Can be, you're right.
That you need to have some sort of, at least a minimal amount of training. And go look out on the lake some weekends and you go, these folks didn't have a clue.
Right.
So taking a safety course, they go through things like CPR, basic first aid, boating safety, navigation, which side of a channel marker should I be on?
Yes.
And a lot of it's
how to read the channel.
How to read the channel markers. And things like just fueling your boat. I can't tell you how many times I've seen when I was at some of the marinas down south, people would come and stick the gas nozzle in a rod holder.
Ooh.
Okay, and they'd literally fill up the bilge with gas.
Oh, no.
I mean, put 50 gallons in there. I mean, and then you discover, you go, let's just run the other way. Anybody could do that. That's a mistake, But the information that you get from a course, it's a couple of weekends, like a Saturday here and a Saturday there, and the amount of information that you can receive from that, because we're talking about our loved ones that we have on the boat with us, and we're talking about other people's property. The fact that some people don't realize, or maybe they don't care, that's too harsh, that a lot of folks just don't realize that you are solely responsible for any damage to anybody else's property or persons that your wake causes. So if you're running down the channel wide open, throwing out a 4-foot wake, or real slow throwing out a 4-foot wake on a big boat, and you're running way too close a little closer to boat docks than you should, and somebody's sitting there and your wake throws them off the dock, there's the potential that you're responsible for that.
Wow.
Because it's your boat that did the damage.
Here.
And again, I'm not trying to scare people or say, well, you're not a safe boater or something like that. That's not my intention at all. But I do think that when it comes to boating, because it can be a dangerous activity, that folks should have as much knowledge as they can to be safe on the water and to make sure that they have a great time on the water and they get their family and their friends back home again safely.
Yeah, you're right. That's great. Those are great tips.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
I'm a font of useless knowledge.
No, you're not. You're a font of great knowledge. It's fantastic. Our hour is gone.
Oh my gosh,
I don't know where it went.
Thank you. I've had so much fun talking to you.
Thank you. Me too.
And Thanks for welcoming me to Hartwell.
Oh my gosh, we're so glad to have you and Beth, and I can't wait to see her again at the Y and chat with her.
Good.
And I'm so glad that y'all chose Hartwell as
Me
your
too.
home.
Me too.
And I hope that everybody will watch your show and call you if they want a fishing guide.
Bring it. Nutsandboltsfishing.com, guys. Let's go fishing.
Nutsandboltsfishing.com. All right. Thank you so much, HeartCom, for letting us be here today, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.